In a remote cabin nestled deep within the dense woods, there was a gruesome secret that had long been buried in obscurity. Only a few unfortunate souls had ever stumbled upon it, and most never lived to speak of it. This chilling tale revolves around a new set of characters who would soon come face to face with the cabin's terrifying legacy. Jake and Rebecca, a young couple in search of solitude and adventure, decided to spend a weekend away from the city. The cabin, despite its grim reputation, seemed like the perfect escape. They yearned for a break from the relentless pace of urban life and for an opportunity to rekindle their love. As they reached the cabin, an undeniable sense of unease settled upon them. The cabin's dilapidated exterior appeared haunted. Its windows were grim and lifeless, but the promise of isolation and a chance to reconnect with nature outweighed their initial apprehensions. Inside the cabin, they found peeling wallpaper, creaking floorboards, and an oppressive atmosphere that spoke of abandonment. Still, Jake and Rebecca brought their supplies and set about making the cabin more welcoming. They started a fire in the fireplace and laid out their sleeping bags, hoping to turn the cabin into a cozy retreat. The night, however, had different plans for them. As the darkness fell, an eerie sense of dread enveloped them. Strange sounds echoed from the woods outside, rustlings, unsettling cries, and the faint whispers of the wind. Jake and Rebecca attempted to dismiss their rising fears as mere products of their overactive imaginations. Their first night in the cabin was far from peaceful. Rebecca awoke to an eerie noise, a soft, repetitive thumping that sent shivers down her spine. She roused Jake, her heart racing. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, gripping his arm. Jake strained to listen. The thumping grew louder, and it seemed to resonate through the floorboards. "It's probably just an animal," he assured her, attempting to dispel her fears. However, the sounds were not that of an animal. They were rhythmic, deliberate, and seemed to be coming from inside the cabin itself. Terrified, they followed the noise until it led them to a small, locked door beneath the staircase. The source of the noise lay behind the door. They forced it open and found a narrow, dimly lit cellar. The thumping appeared to be coming from beneath a wooden trapdoor on the floor of the cellar. As they inched closer, they could hear a faint, anguished voice. "Help me," it pleaded, over and over, in a voice that was both haunting and familiar. Jake and Rebecca exchanged horrified glances. The voice seemed to be coming from beneath the trapdoor, and the thumping was growing more frantic, as if someone were trapped in a hidden chamber below. With trembling hands, they lifted the trapdoor, revealing a narrow, twisting stairwell that descended into darkness. The voice was now more distinct, and they could hear sobs and pleas for help. Unable to ignore the cries any longer, they descended into the abyss. The stairwell led deeper into the earth, and as they ventured further, the air grew colder, and the walls became damp and slimy. At the bottom of the stairwell, they found themselves in a chamber dimly lit by a single, flickering candle. It was a place of nightmares. Cages lined the walls, each containing the remains of what appeared to be animals, desiccated and decaying. At the center of the chamber lay a crude, blood-stained operating table. Lying on the table was a figure, bound and mutilated beyond recognition. The voice they had heard was coming from this tortured soul, who begged for release from their nightmarish existence. Jake and Rebecca gasped in horror as they realized the truth. The cabin held a gruesome secret, and they had stumbled upon a chamber of unspeakable cruelty. Determined to free the tortured individual, they worked quickly to cut the restraints. As they did, The voice grew weaker, and the figure on the table shivered with a mixture of relief and pain. When the last restraint was cut, they helped the figure to their feet. In the dim candlelight, the figure's identity became clear. It was a man, emaciated and covered in scars. His eyes were wide with terror, and he clung to Jake and Rebecca as if they were his lifeline. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "They were going to kill me. You saved me." Jake and Rebecca helped the man up the stairwell, out of the chamber of horrors, and back into the cabin. They wrapped him in a blanket and listened to his tale. His name was Daniel, and he had been held captive in the chamber for months, subjected to unspeakable experiments and torture by a group of deranged individuals who had taken over the cabin. He had managed to escape his captors when they had left the cabin briefly, and he had hidden in the cellar, hoping for rescue. Jake and Rebecca had unwittingly provided that escape. As they listened to Daniel's horrifying account, a noise echoed from the depths of the forest, a cacophony of whispers and footsteps. The group realized that the deranged individuals who had tortured Daniel were returning to the cabin. They had to act quickly. Jake, Rebecca, and Daniel fled into the night, leaving the cabin and its gruesome secret behind. As they disappeared into the dark woods, they could hear the sinister laughter of their pursuers and the anguished cries of other victims. They never returned to the cabin, but the horrors they had witnessed haunted their dreams for the rest of their lives. The cabin in the woods held a gruesome secret, one that was better left undisturbed, for the darkness that dwelled within its walls was beyond comprehension, a nightmare that could never be forgotten.